Let's talk about your earning potential. What is your earning potential? And to figure that out, we're going to go through a couple of things. We're going to talk about pricing. We're going to talk about finding leads. We're going to talk about your overall business structure and just try to get a sense for, with the way things are going for you right now, even if things were going great in terms of finding leads and closing the projects, what is your earning? Like, how much can you actually make with the structure that you have in place? And does that actually meet the goals that you have? So that's the topic for today. And I wanted to bring that up because a lot of times it's easy to get kind of caught up in, well, how do I find projects? How do I find leads? Like, what's the best way to market my business without really thinking through, well, are the price points that I'm offering and like the structure, like the way that you work with clients, is that going to actually enable you to hit the revenue goals that you have for your business? So let me ask you a couple of questions. Let's talk about it like this. So first off, kind of right off the bat, like, what do you want to make? Like, how much do you want to be making every month with the revenue that comes in from your business? And let's not get too complicated about it. Let's not think through how, the expenses and the profit and all that stuff. Let's just kind of talk about, like, just in general, like, would it be great if you made 10 grand a month? Or would it be great if maybe the first step is $5,000 per month? Like, most of the people that I talk to would be pretty happy to add an extra $5,000 to $10,000 per month to their revenue, extra $60,000 to $120,000 per year. So just for you, like, just kind of make a note, like jot down or think about, where do you want to be monthly with the revenue that you bring in? And then kind of write that down. And now ask yourself, well, how much are you charging? Like, what's your average project cost? Like, when you normally work with a client, like, what does that represent in terms of income for you? And then figure out, well, I mean, according to the stats, like I've looked up, like, what the average website cost on, the Stack Overflow annual surveys and all the different ways to get websites. And like, I know that the average WordPress site's about $1,000, a little bit less than $1,000. But what do you charge? Like, figure out what is your price point, and then figure out, okay, well, based on the answers to those two questions, like, for example, where do you want to be month to month in terms of your revenue and how much you're charging? Well, then you can figure out, well, how many clients do you need at that price point to be able to hit the monthly revenue goal? And this is something that is important to think through, because if you're putting effort into your business to try to, win clients, you need to think through, well, if I'm successful at this, am I actually going to be successful or not? Like, if I'm successful at winning the clients, I'm actually going to be making the money that I need. So for example, let's say that you want to make $5,000 a month and you're selling, $1,000 WordPress sites or whatever. Well, that means you're going to be selling like 5 sites per month, right? So that's kind of where you need to be thinking this through. So, but before we can really figure out, well, what does that mean? Let's talk about close rates. For example, like, how many people do you need to reach out to and schedule meetings with in order to, be able to generate enough projects to kind of hit that goal? So let's kind of look at that. So how many people do you need to talk to in order to onboard enough clients to win the projects you need to generate the income that you're looking for? So for example, if you want to make $5,000 a month, you're selling $1,000 websites, or let's just say you're selling $1,250. Maybe your site's a little bit more expensive than the average site, and you're selling, $1,250. Like, $1,250 is kind of your project point. So that's about one project a week. So, every week you get 4 projects out of the month, and now you're at $5,000. So how many people do you need to reach out to make that happen? And so let's kind of take a look at some statistics on average close rates so that you can begin to figure out, well, what's your workflow going to be like in order to bring all of this together? So again, what we just talked about with the pricing, what do you want to make every month? Figure out what it is that you normally charge for your work, and then we can kind of back into where you need to be in terms of your marketing, like your outreach. So here's an example. Suppose you want to make, let's just kind of keep it simple, $5,000 a month. You want to add that or have a business that generates that. That's about $60,000 per year. And let's say your average project price is a little bit more than the average WordPress site. So your average site's, let's say, $1,250. So now you need 4 closed projects every month in order to hit that goal. So that's 1 a week. So you want to get 1 client per week. which already just kind of off the bat, that's kind of striking me as a lot of effort and a lot of work. So while you're working on building out that one project per week, now ask yourself, well, how many meetings do you need to be able to set up in order to make sure that you have a project to do next week while you're working on the project that you're currently doing? So let's say that you've got a close rate of, say, 25%, which is a pretty good close rate. Like if somebody's meeting with you and you're making an offer to them, and 1 in 4 people that you talk to say yes, that's pretty good. That, I think, pretty much by anybody's standards, that's a pretty good close rate. So let's say, okay, well, in order to do that, you have to meet with 4 people in order to get one of them to actually pay you to work together. So then you think, okay, well, how many people do I need to reach out to in order to get those 4 meetings so that I can close that one project? And so then you think, well, what's the close rate for that? So in terms of like reaching out to clients, like prospects, to scheduling a meeting. So that close rate, as opposed to having the meeting and actually working together. So there's really 2 close rates, right? It's the outreach to the meeting, that's 1, and then the meeting to actually working together. So that's 2. So let's talk about the close rate for the outreach to the meeting, that 1. And now that depends on how you're doing the outreach. So for example, are you reaching out to warm leads that you kind of already have a relationship with, or are you reaching out to cold traffic, like relatively cold traffic? Because the close rates are dramatically different. And this is one of the things I talk a lot about, that wouldn't it be good to focus on warm leads, because the close rate is, hey, Tony, it's good to see you, because the close rate is so much higher for warm traffic than it is cold traffic. For example, for warm leads, my experience has been, if you reach out to about 3 people, you probably get about 1 meeting. So let's call it 33% close rate for that kind of a thing, if it's somebody who knows you ahead of time. Now, if you're just reaching out to cold traffic, like you're just showing up somewhere and saying, hey, I want to build you a website, or just emailing somebody, or just doing whatever that's cold, then the close rate dramatically drops to like 1 to 2%, something like that. But even if it's awesome, even if it's like 5%, then, where do you need to be in order to get the number of leads to get 4 actual meetings scheduled during the week? So if you're doing warm traffic and you have about a 33% close rate, something like that, then you're going to need about 12. You need to reach out to about 12 warm leads in order to get 1 client to actually, work with you per week. Because it would get 12 leads, we go to 4 meetings, which would whittle down to 1 paying customer. So that's warm traffic. That's 12 people. That's like, if you work every day of the week except for Sunday, that would be 2 people per day that you need to be reaching out to. Now, if you're doing cold traffic, even if it's like great success, like even if you have a really good close rate from cold traffic to meetings, and it's like 5%, then you're looking at like 80. Like you have to reach out to like 80 people every month to be able to get 4 meetings every month, so that you can, or every week rather, so that you can actually get 1 client per week. So every week, what you're doing is you're reaching out to between 12 and 80 people, right? So that's your outreach, which is, that to me strikes me as an awful lot of work to reach out to 12 to 80 people every single week. Like, how do you find that many people? And then the result of that is that you now have 4 meetings scheduled on your calendar to actually talk to potential clients. So now you have to run those meetings, and then you actually win 1 client per week. Meanwhile, you're still working on the client's project that you just won last week. And that's just to make $60,000 per year. So my question for you is, what's your earning potential? Like, can you do that much work? And if it's just you by yourself, how do you get that all done? I think by anyone's standards, that is a lot of work. Simply finding, somewhere between 12 and 80 people to reach out to strikes me as something that's a lot of work right there, just on the surface. Never mind actually having the meeting and actually writing the proposal and actually winning the contract. Meanwhile, you're actually building the website from the client that you won last week, all of which is supposed to get you to the point where you're making, $60,000 a year. And mind you, this assumption is that there is no marketing budget, right? You're doing this organically. You're somehow magically finding 80 people every single week to reach out to without running any sort of paid ads. Because if you're going to run paid ads, well, then you have to factor in your budget, your marketing budget for the ads in order to be able to generate all of this stuff. And now you're not making 60 grand a year anymore. You're making whatever that is minus your ad budget. So there's an extra expense. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like, what is your earning potential? Like, is that the kind of business structure that you have? So, and when I talk about business structure, what I'm really referring to is the ratio of time that you spend doing billable work and the ratio versus non-billable work on your business. So, how much time are you spending doing the non-billable stuff? Like reaching out to 80 people and meeting with clients and writing these proposals for these projects that you haven't won yet. Like, how much of your overall workflow goes into doing that as opposed to actually building the site that you got paid for? And then what I found is most of the people I talk to, it's really lopsided. It's like the vast majority of the time is doing the outreach and the marketing and the meetings and the proposals, and just a little bit of time is in doing the projects. And most of the people I talk to usually can do about one project per month, not one project per week. And some of it comes down to this very thing. It's like there's just not that many people to reach out to. It's too labor intensive. There's too much time going into the non-billable side of your business. And that's the business structure that I really want to bring to light, which is think it through. Like, in order to calculate what your earning potential is, you have to look at the structure of your business. Like, if you are successful at doing what you're doing, what does that look like? Like, think that through so that you can say, hey, even if I am successful, does that actually give me what I want? And so most of the time when I talk to people, they say the minimum that they would like is $5,000 per month, like $60,000 per year. Usually it's more like $7,000 or $8,000 per month, like 10,000. It's like somewhere in this. People generally want to get to about 10K per month, $120,000 per year in order to feel really good about their business. And so then you think, okay, well, if you, instead of 5,000 per month, you want 10, well, just double all the stuff that we just talked about. So instead of reaching out to 80 people a week, it's 160 people a week. And instead of having 4 meetings per week, it's 8 meetings per week. So now you're actually meeting with prospects more than once a day, every day of the week. And while you're doing all of that, you're now building 2 websites every single week instead of just one. So while you're actually trying to get 2 websites built and launched and deployed and all that stuff going on, you still have 2 client meetings, prospect meetings every single week. And in order to do that, you're actually doing this marketing where you're reaching out to a minimum of 25 people just to get your 4 meetings booked, even if they're warm leads. And so I think anybody can understand that doesn't work. That just doesn't work. And so then you think, well, what's the other alternative? Like, what can I do instead of that? And and then Tony just mentioned, plus there's the unknown of scope creep and renegotiation. That's absolutely true. So I'm trying to describe this in as simple of a pattern as we can, but there's definitely, like Tony was just mentioning, there's other costs, there's other variables in play here. But the point that I'm making is the structure that most people have, which is like this old style of being a web designer, that old structure doesn't work today. And what if you then say, okay, well, I'm just going to raise my price. So I'm not going to charge $1,250 for my work anymore. I'm going to charge $5,000 for one project. So now I just need 1 client per month, not 1 client per week. And, I'm raising my prices and going in that direction. And hopefully that'll change the structure, right? So now I don't need to have so many clients. I've just cut the number of clients, and all the other numbers are now just 25% of what they were before, because I only need 1 project per month, not 4 projects per month. So then you think, okay, well, that might be a good first step. At a price point like that seems great. But now you have a whole other set of problems. So now the problem is like, well, what if, what's your answer if someone asks you why you're 5 times more than everybody else who's just charging $1,000 for their work? It's like, what do you say to that in the context of the benefit that your client gets? Like, of course you can say, well, I just can't work for that cheap, or, I'm worth it, or I put all this time to build my skills, and, I'm going to be a great person to work with, me. What about you? Like, why would the client think it's a good idea to work with you at 5 times the cost of the alternatives? And that's a really important question. Here's another one. What is your answer if someone asks you, why should I spend $5,000 working with you instead of $500 hiring someone off Fiverr? Or not even that, or for free? Like, what if I just build it myself on Wix? What if I spin up my own Squarespace site, or Wix site? Why should I, give you $5,000 instead of saving myself $5,000 and just kind of doing it myself? What's your answer for that? Like, do you have a reason? And that's the problem. Most people don't have a reason. Most people haven't really thought through a lot of the things that we've talked about. And so when someone asks a question like that, they default back to my credentials, my skills. I put a lot of time in this. I'm local. I can, it's going to be a good customer experience. And then that just doesn't ring true for the client. Like, yeah, maybe it is a good customer experience, but it's not worth $4,000 or $5,000 compared to the next best alternative. And so that's a big problem. So what should your answer be? And of course, the real answer is you're offering a better outcome for your clients. And I'm not talking about just a better website. Like, okay, yeah, I think you and me, we all understand, especially as, web design professionals, that a custom built website is dramatically better than an off-the-shelf template, because you can get exactly what you want. It's going to be different from everybody else's stuff. You've got control to add any other kind of features into the mix. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why it's better. But in the mind of the client, you have to put yourself in the mind of the client. What do they think is the reason? Like, are they able to understand the value difference between working with you and what they could get on their own on Wix or just hiring somebody? Like, you can get, like, there's tons of people, like, even if you just go into Upwork, or even if you don't, even if you just shout out your window and just open up the window, stick your head out and say, can anybody build me a Squarespace site? I mean, people will come flocking into your backyard and raising their hand, offering to build you a Squarespace site for probably under $500. So what's the difference? So what are you going to say if someone says, why is working with you better than working with somebody else? And the answer that you need to come up with is my outcomes. Like, I'm able to generate a better outcome for you. And that is ultimately what it all boils down to. And the outcome is not the website or the SEO or the logo or the branding. Those are only stepping stones to the outcomes. Because there's and I think maybe next week we'll probably talk about, the invasion of all of these low-cost alternatives and what that means and what the problems are that we're now facing as web designers in light of these new circumstances that have arisen. But the big point that we'll probably tap into some next week too is that you've got to generate better outcomes for your clients. And the outcome's not the website, because in our mind, like you and me, we can look at it and say, yeah, this is a custom coded theme. This is loading, a fraction of a second faster. That means you get better Google love from it, and all the different things. But the things that matter to the clients, like, for example, responsive design. Like, you build a site on Squarespace, you've got responsive design built into the mix. Like virtually all of their templates are designed to look great on mobile phones and so forth. So you've got all different screen sizes built in. So you can't really say working with you is going to be a better outcome because of mobile readiness. Security. If you're on Squarespace or Wix, you don't have to worry about plugin updates or software updates or hosting or hacked sites as often as you would in a WordPress environment, where that's a really big deal. Backups, that's another thing. And with WordPress, you got to do offsite backups and figure that out somehow. If you're working on Wix or Squarespace or something like that, that's not a concern, because it's kind of just baked into the platform. And so then you have to say, well, what else is there? And in the mind of, and especially concerning the mind of the client, like, what are they able to understand and get out of it in terms of why working with you is $5,000 better than the next best thing, which is, a Wix or a Squarespace site. And what you need to say is it's the outcome. The outcome is better with me than with them. And what I mean by that is we've gotten to a point today where anybody can have a website. See, like, it used to be, like, the old pattern of being a web designer, like even as recently as like 3 or 4 years ago, was, hey, you need to have a website because everybody's looking for you online and you want to be where your customers are searching. So you got to get online, get the website, and that will put you in front of your customers when and where they're looking for you. And that's a valuable thing. And so therefore it's worth $5,000 to do that. And the next best option was don't do that, right? It was either do it or don't do it. And that was the decision. But today, that's not the decision. Today, the decision is spend $5,000 with you to get that outcome, or spend $5 per month, with whatever Wix cost or whatever, to just kind of do the same thing. Either way, you have a responsive website online where people are looking for you. So what's happened now is the outcome of getting online so that you are in front of your clients, that outcome is cheap, really cheap, free. It's even free in certain situations where you don't really care about your domain name and you can just, host on Wix or whatever, or even a WordPress.org site. There's free ways for people to get online. And so what's happened, like the fundamental shift that's happened, that's causing the prices to just drain out of web design businesses, is the fact that the outcome of getting online is now really, really inexpensive. So now our challenge is to create better outcomes for that. So we've gotten to a point where anybody can get online, which is not necessarily even a bad thing. Like, it's good. It's good that people can get online and reach people and tell people about their services and how they can help. And it doesn't cost, $20,000 or whatever to get there. And so here's Tony just said, yeah, his first website had to pay for was only HTML back in 1995, and he paid $10,000 for it. Now you can get a dynamic WordPress site for free. Yeah, that's 100% true. And that's really the point, because the outcome back in 1995 was nobody's really online. You get online, you're in front of a bunch of people. The competition's not there, but you are. You're in front of this audience where everyone else that's competing with you is hidden away in the analog world. And boom, now look, you've got this huge opportunity. That's a really cool outcome, and it's worth 10 grand. Today, that outcome is worth $0. It's free or super, super cheap. So what can you do that's going to generate a better outcome from that? Because we've gotten to a point where anybody can have a website. But the truth is, while it is true you can have a site, very, very few people are getting results from their online presence. Everyone's online. And, it's not a new thing anymore. And if someone's going to hire you, your job is to create a better outcome than just being online. Like, what can you do that's better than that? And so that's the question. So how do you market? So let me ask you a couple questions. And this is going to kind of lead you in the path of fixing the problem of offering better outcomes. How do you market your business so you don't sound exactly like everybody else? Like what do you say about who you are, what you do, your services, that's different from everyone else that does basically the same thing as you? Like, do you have a website that says, hey, we offer branding and logos and WordPress sites and, hosting and maintenance plans? Like, does your website sound like that? Because that's what most people's websites are all about. Or maybe you've taken it a step further and you say, hey, we help businesses grow. It's like, what? Who doesn't? Who doesn't help businesses grow? Who doesn't at least say they help businesses grow? And so, we provide a custom experience for all of our clients and really help you go to the next level, or whatever it might be. It's like everyone says that. And then you kind of, pull back, that curtain a little bit and you say, well, how do I get to the next level? And then it says, well, we've got SEO services. We can do, website development, and we can do photography, or what, all the raw services that go into achieving the outcome of helping you grow, right? So, if that's what your website says, why should anybody in the world pick you instead of the next website that says exactly the same thing? So that's a question that you should be asking yourself. Like, what can I do to market my business so I don't sound like everybody else, with a focus on achieving better outcomes for my clients? Another question is, how do you attract clients with a real budget for your work? For example, if you're out there saying, hey, I can help you put a website online, who is that going to attract? Think about if somebody were to land on your website with the mindset that you're creating for them based on what you're writing on your website, and they're thinking, well, the outcome is getting a website online, even if it's in the context of helping my business grow. But if the outcome is getting a website online, then why would somebody be willing to pay you $5,000 for that when they can get a website online for $500 or even less? So think about that. Like, how are you going to attract clients to your business so that they have in their mind an actual budget to hire you for what you're really worth? And then the last thing is, and this is a really, really important point, maybe even the most important of all the things that we've talked about, is how do you get your clients to value you and not just your work, right? So we don't want you to be in a situation where they can just kind of pluck you out and put you off to the side and then replace you with someone else who does website development and branding and SEO and all that stuff. Like, how do you create a situation where when your client wants to work with you, they're working with you because of you, not only because of your services. And that is the ultimate key to becoming a high-ticket web design consultant. And I say web design consultant because you're ultimately going to be doing two things. You're ultimately going to be doing web design, but you're mixing in a certain level of business consulting along the way. And that is the outcome. That's why you can generate better outcomes for your clients, because you're not just cookie cutter stamping out websites. You're actually providing them a path to better outcomes. So if those are some questions that you're asking yourself, like, how do I market myself so I don't sound like everybody else? And what can I do to attract clients that have in their mind that they're planning to spend like a real budget to actually enable to hire you to spend the time that it takes to deliver these types of outcomes? And if you're wondering, like, how do you get people to value you and not just your skills, but actually you, that's where the business consulting concept really comes into play. And so if those are some things that you're wondering, how do you pull all of that together in the context of what your skills are, what your interests are, the pricing that you want to charge, the kind of monthly revenue you want to be putting in your bank account, if those are some of the things that you're asking yourself, then let's get on the phone and talk about it. So head over to doublestack.net/call, and you're going to find my calendar and pick a time that's going to work for you. And let's get on the phone for free for like 45 minutes and talk about those three things and more too. Like, we'll talk about a ton of stuff, but we'll specifically dive into how do you market your business so you don't sound like everybody else? What can you do to attract clients that are actually looking to spend, an actual budget so that you can actually hit your revenue goals? And how do you get people to value you as a consultant, as opposed to thinking, well, this is just a black box kind of a situation where I put my money in and I get a website out, and if this black box doesn't work, then I'll try that black box over there. And there's your identity isn't in the mix at all. It's just like, where can I get a cheap website? So throw that idea away and present an idea that sets you apart as an expert, as an authority, as someone who is worthy of premium rates because you deliver better outcomes. So if that sounds like the kind of thing that you want to do and the kind of business structure that you want to wrap around your business so that you can maximize your earning potential, then let's get on the phone and talk about that over at doublestack.net/call. And here's the thing. When you do it this way, you end up with two really great outcomes. Like, when you become the consultant, then first of all, you're justifying dramatically higher price points because you're showing people how they're going to get these better outcomes. And secondly, like we were talking about in the beginning, you get a situation where you don't have to constantly find new clients all the time. Remember, we were talking about how you had to find like 80 leads every single month just to get one project per week kind of coming in. You don't have to do that anymore because you keep the clients you already have. So you end up having two components to your relationship. The first is the build out phase, where you build out all the stuff that someone needs. But the story is we're building out all of these tools so that we can use them. And that's where the recurring revenue comes in, so that people keep working with you on an ongoing basis. And that means you don't have to put the time into finding clients anymore. Like, you get yourself somewhere between 5 to 10 clients and you've done it. Like, you don't really have to find any more clients like that, because most of your clients will be paying you at least somewhere in the vicinity of, $800 to $1,000 per month, something like that. So like, you're making $1,000 a month. You've got 10 clients. There's your 10 grand a month. You don't have to do any of the lead generation stuff anymore. And that means 100% of your time can go into actually doing billable work. And that's the answer. That's how you figure it out. When you put all of your time into actually doing the work, that maximizes your earning potential. So this should be the light bulb moment that, hey, I need to shift the business structure into a situation where I have high ticket, long-term clients, so I don't have to spend all this time, generating leads and meeting with clients and writing proposals and, doing all of these things for free. And instead, I'm going to spend all my time helping my clients get better results for their business. And all of the time that I spend doing that is, of course, billable time. And now you've just freed up a ton of time, which means that your earning potential is through the roof. So if you have about a 40-hour work week, like if you want to put full-time effort into it, as a solopreneur web designer, it's realistic to think that you can clear $100,000 a year like that. There's DoubleStackers doing it right now. In fact, I just interviewed Alex. He went from basically zero to $100,000 a year in less than 12 months. And he's doing this very thing. He doesn't have to go out and find clients all the time because he keeps these long-term relationships. That's the whole point. So, and other people are doing it too. So that's the idea. That's the whole thing. I wanted to really bring that out and kind of describe, hey, think it through. Where do you want to be month to month in terms of your revenue? How many clients do you need at that point? And can the structure that you have in place sustain that level of revenue for you? And if it can, then awesome. If it can't, let's get on the phone and fix that for you so that as you put effort into your business, you're building something that's really going to hit your goals. So awesome, guys. That's what we got for today. Head over to doublestack.net/call. You'll see my calendar, pick a time, and you and I will get on the phone and really figure out, like, how do you market your business so you don't sound exactly like everybody else? How do you attract these high-ticket clients with a real budget? And best of all, how do you make it so that everyone understands it's you that is the valuable asset, not just your raw skills? So awesome. High five for you. Boop. It's good seeing you. Looking forward to catching up again next Tuesday.